Part 12. Someone announced that Madam was entering. She never came out after she went inside the heavenly purified palace. All the people, the government officials and concubines looked at Madam coming in the ceremonial ground with sharp eyes. But everyone held their breath. This woman looked very fragile. Her body was covered with layers of light-colored clothes. But she looked definitely thin, like she'll break soon. Her thin and pale face was clean like a child's skin. No, it was very faint. Her skin couldn't even tell if she put on some powder. Her calm eye and her fresh bloomed flower-like lips made her look like she was an illusion. Some people thought she was flying because the wind was blowing the silk and made it look like a clear wind. Nobody could breathe well because they thought it would blow her away. Civil and military officials were amazed that this kind of woman existed, and concubines were amazed how Madam, who covered her face completely during the nuptial, revealed her face. Right after Madam took her seat, the Empress came in. She was wearing a fancy wig decorated with gold binia, and she was wearing gold, red, black, and violet color fancy dress. Those 4 colors were only allowed for the Empress to use. She stood up other side of Madam, and they showed a big contrast. Fancy and gorgeous Empress was the best, but somehow people couldn't take their eyes off Madam. The Madam was standing quietly with her head bowed. She looked very humble than other people, but she didn't look poor. The other fancily decorated concubines were just biting their lips, feeling lower than her. The Empress sat down, and the Emperor came in. He was wearing a crown, and wearing gold, red, black, and violet color clothes. He was holding a scepter decorated with round and hard Miquiliana fruit that represented the seeds of crops. The Emperor walked slowly to the middle seat, and he looked at Madam first and the Empress. But nobody complained about that rudeness. Not even the Empress. And the plantain festival began. In front of the food for the ceremony, the Emperor read a long prayer and bowed to the sky holding the scepter. Both sides of him, the Empress and the Madam, kneeled down, and whenever the Emperor bowed, they placed their forehead on the cold ground. When it was their time for libation, the Empress poured the liquor first to the Emperor. The Emperor placed that in the east and bowed down again. Next the Madam poured the liquor, and the Emperor placed that in the west this time. Right then, when he was trying to bow, few drops of water dropped from the sky. Soon, few drops became a shower of rain. The rain that comes down during the sowing season, considered as a sacred rain. Everybody started to bow down to the sky, but only the Emperor and the Madam stood still. Madam was just staring at the sky getting wet from the rain, and the Emperor was just looking at that Madam. Madam's clothing was completely wet, and with her long and slender arm raised a little bit higher, she was feeling the rain. That gave the impression like she was welcoming the guest. That looked so natural that people thought the Madam brought the rain. Like that, the sowing season ended. The Emperor dried Yeho's pale, wet face by himself. Nobody knew it would rain. His Madam couldn't even talk well because he was shivering so much. He felt pity and sorry. Your body is very cold because of the rain. Soa, bring me a warm water and a towel, and bring me some new clothes. Bring some thicker ones. Yes, Your Majesty. Soa disappeared quickly. He started to take off Yeho's wet clothes. Leave it, I'll do it. Emperor smiled, hearing his shivering voice. If you are going to say something about reputation, stop it. You probably can't move a single finger. How are you going to do it? Emperor covered both of his cold and thin hands with his right hand. He took Yeho's clothes off with his other hand. While doing that, Soa brought warm water and a towel. She left those clothes to the Emperor and quickly went out the room. The Emperor smiled, looking at Soa, and washed Yeho's cold face, neck, and body with a warm wet towel. Let me do it. You are not supposed to do this kind of stuff. And aren't you wet as well? He was still shivering a little bit, but he was able to talk properly now. But the Emperor still didn't listen and continued to wipe his bony spine. Stay still. I don't get cold because of my energy I learned during the martial arts training. Oh, I told you to stay still. Your skin is like ice. After this, go inside the blanket, then Soa will bring warm clothes. Anyway, it's a trouble. It's warm enough to do the sowing season, but you still can't stand this weather. How are you going to spend the winter? I already spent the winter here, Your Majesty. It was pretty rough, but it wasn't that bad. Anyway, if I knew it was going to rain, I wouldn't put you up there. You get sick if it gets cold. He put away the towel and pulled the blanket all the way up to Yeho's shoulder and took out the hair that was stuck to his pale face. Anyway, it's a good thing that it rained. When it rains during planting festival, it means we will have good harvest during the year. The previous emperors never had this. They had good harvest time to time, but it never rained during the festival. He said that and turned his eyes to the window. The rain got much weaker than before. It seems like it will stop soon. Everyone is saying that you brought the rain. There was a short time of silence and Yeho turned his head to him after hearing that. Nothing was showing in his quiet eyes. People are saying Princess Suayan from the small kingdom is the dragon's fairy. Dragon's fairy. He repeated himself quietly, and the emperor laughed. Oh, you probably don't know. This is North Empire's folktale. I heard kids talking about this on the street. It was probably while I was on the patrol. One of the orbs that a dragon has is the power of rain. One day the dragon lost that orb. The orb lost its control and turned it into raindrops and fell on the earth. The dragon felt desperate and turned himself into a human and looked for the orb. The drops that the orb turned into rain dropped on a tree leaf, an ocean, a river, and another drop dropped on a bird's feather. Anyway, he collected all the drops from all over the world, and he finally found the last drop. But that last drop was the problem. That drop was the teardrop of a woman who couldn't cry. How can he get the drop from the woman who can't even cry? The dragon thought about it many times, and he gave all the drops he collected to her. That woman gained the power of the orb, so she was able to control the rain. And she became the dragon's fairy and sends us the rains. The emperor showed an awkward smile like any other ordinary man. It's boring. I heard it from a boy, and I think he was way better than me. The story was longer and better than this. It seems like I can't be a storyteller. It was fun, Your Majesty. Yeho smiled gently, and he added a joke. Still, it doesn't make sense me being the dragon's fairy. I'm not even a woman. The emperor was extremely happy to see Yeho's laugh in a long time. When he stopped saying no, his smile also disappeared. Whenever he realized that, he couldn't stand his heartache. Even with his pain, he still couldn't let Yeho go. He felt like if he let Yeho go, he would go crazy and end up cutting Yeho's neck without even realizing. So he decided to ignore his pain. The emperor laughed more because he was happy to see Yeho's faint smile, and he wrapped Yeho's face and kissed his smiling lips. Yeho accepted his lips, but later he stepped back and separated their lips. It's cold. It's because you are still wearing that wet clothes. You will get sick. Tell eunuch to bring new clothes. The emperor's smile got deeper hearing his nag starting. This kind of part never changes. You should help me. It's not easy to take off wet clothes. The emperor smiled mischievously, and Yeho avoided his eyes. I'll help you when you tell them to bring you a new clothes. What for, Your Majesty? Yeho slightly reprimanded him, but the emperor still had his smile and kisses Yeho's thin shoulder. Just don't say anything and help me take off my clothes. Yeho just gave up and sighed.